the home of inspiration every day.
Most people give up on themselves easily. You know the human spirit is powerful.
From news,
countries across the globe have been hit by the COVID-19 virus.
Views,
there's a global trend to see an increase in GBV incidences, specifically domestic violence.
sports,
What's he say? It's a really good ball. It's Shabalala.
and music to inspire you every day. This is Vuka Online, your inspiration radio station.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of The Cycle right here on Vuka Online Radio with me, your host, Mogale Mothale. Thanks to you for those of you who are streaming this evening, and thanks to my colleague Monkesi Makalema for that news bulletin. Thank you so much for choosing us this evening. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to be with Vuka Online Radio. On the show tonight, we will be reflecting on the 1 year of the GNU. The GNU that has had its fair share of challenges. You can think of the budget. We had 3 presentations of the budget. The NHI that has been in the courts, the Expropriation Act, the Bella Act that has also been in the courts. These are seen as the transformative project or instruments, transformative instruments in the country, and the Democratic Alliance has been very reluctant to these transformative instruments, and they've been heavily criticized for their stance on this. The NHI, the Expropriation Act, and the Bella Act. So this evening we will be talking to Zandile Phiri, who will be joining us later on the show, the Secretary General of the UDM. They are part of the GNU, by the way. We have their leader, Bantu Holomisa, as the Deputy Minister of Defense. For those of you who has been with us for some time, you will remember that back in January, we had the Deputy Minister of Defense, Bantu Holomisa, talking to us about the Presidential Task Team on Back to School in the Eastern Cape, talking to us about the readiness of the Department of Education in the province to welcome back the learners, and also the infrastructure. We know that the Eastern Cape has been one of the provinces that has been in the news for some time with regard to their poor infrastructure in the school. We don't even want to talk about the pediatricians, just the mud school in that province. So, but the new Minister of Education, Sibiwe, Basic Education, Sibiwe Habube, has committed that they will get rid of the pediatricians and also the getting rid of the mud schools, not only in the Eastern Cape, but across the country, and making sure that they improve in their infrastructure. So that's the conversation that we'll be having this evening with Zandile Phiri, just reflecting on the 1 year of the GNU, and also maybe just to hear their thoughts with regard to the independent commission of inquiry to probe the allegations that were brought forward by General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. At the center of that, we know that is the minister of, or the former minister, or the suspended minister, or the minister who is on leave, Senzo Mkhulu. We know that at this point, Gwedemantashe is the acting minister of police. He presented the budget for police in Parliament last week. But he's acting until the end of July, and then on the 1st of August we'll have a new minister, and the new minister will be Feroz Kachalia. So it's going to be very interesting to see this transition from Gwedemantashe to a new minister who will be acting, and we believe that the Commission of Inquiry will then be starting, and then they will give evidence. But it's going to be interesting just to see how this will actually develop in the coming month. Remember, the Commission of Inquiry has been given 6 months. Many people have been saying that actually 6 months is too much, because You look at the scope, it's not a wide scope, it's just looking into police, the infiltration of criminal cartels in the police, in the judiciary, and of course, with even in government. So, but I think it's fair. 6 months, I think it might be too much, but for me, looking at the scope, maybe it's fair because you're not only looking to the police, you're not only going to probe the WhatsApp recordings, the WhatsApp messages between the Minister of Police, Brian Mkhwanazi, and Ket Matala, but you are going to look at it holistically. So I think 6 months might make sense. I'm not an expert, maybe I'm wrong, but that's the conversation that we'll be having with Zandile Phiri to hear their thoughts as the UDM, as partners in the GNU. What do they think of these allegations and how they think the Commission of Inquiry should go about this? So we are going to do this with Zandile Phiri right after the break. No, not right after the break, because right after the break, we're going to go straight into some of the key highlights, or maybe just the highlights of the week. There's a lot that happened in the last few days, so it'll be good just to refresh our memory to say what has happened in the last few days and what has been that one story that has kept us talking. So that's what is coming up right after the break. Let's take a break. When we come back, we go straight into the highlights of the week. But before that, my sincere apologies. This is how you can get in touch with us. I always forget to do this. You can get in touch with us on all our social media platforms. We are at Vuka Online Radio on X, on Facebook, as well as on Instagram. Let's take a break. When we come back, straight into the highlights of the week. Stay tuned.
How do you know the life of personal coach you're about to work with is who they say they are? How do you know if they can do the job? At the Africa Board for Coaching, Consulting and Coaching Psychology, we can tell you. So, before you share your secrets and spend your money, check with us first. Visit www.abccccp.com or call us on 012-751-7608. The ABCCP, the professional body for coaches.
Welcome back to the show. This is The Cycle with me, your host, Mogale Mothale, on this Monday. I hope you are having a wonderful time. I know that most of you are still on your way from work. Some of you just got home. You are preparing your kids for school tomorrow. You are preparing them for school tomorrow. It's been 3 weeks of resting, but now we are back to homeworks and all of these things. So I hope you're doing that very well while you're listening to The Cycle this evening. At this point, we are going to our highlights of the week. But before we do that, let me just remind you and those who just joined us tonight, we will be reflecting on the 1 year of the GNU. Of course, it had its own challenges. The Democratic Alliance continues to be the pain in the butt for the ANC, and all the time there've always been these pushbacks, between these two political parties, and also Zandile Phiri, who will be joining us, the Secretary General of the UDM, will also be maybe sharing their thoughts on the allegations made by Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi and the establishment of the Independent Commission of Inquiry to probe those allegations. So that's the conversation that we'll be having later on the show with Zandile Phiri, who will be joining us. So let's start here. Last week, Friday, as you all know, it was Nelson Mandela Day. This is the day that we celebrate not only in South Africa, but it's celebrated globally, even by the United Nations, to celebrate the life of Nelson Mandela and also to urge people to act in humanity and love, as Nelson Mandela did. He gave his 67 years of his life to humanity, to doing good to people. So we also take this time on Nelson Mandela Day, 67 minutes just to do good. So as we all know, this day is also celebrated by the United Nations, and the chair of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Dr. Naledi Pandor, the former Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, spoke at the United Nations on Friday. Let's take a listen what she had to say.
President Mandela was a fierce man on matters of justice, but I don't recall one occasion where he was disrespectful or rude to another person. So this world where justice is respected and upheld is the kind of world that we are asking you to make good trouble for. Now, some may ask, as you sit here, that I'm an accountant, I am just a teacher, I am just a manager. What does making good trouble look like for me? While it can take on individual manifestations, let me suggest how we can bring it to life and give expression to it in our everyday lives. Firstly, making good trouble means being really excellent at what you do. You should have the knowledge that doing very well on your responsibilities contributes toward collective upliftment, regardless of whether people are watching or not, and regardless of the magnitude of the action. What we refer to sometimes as the ordinary has its own significance, and when done to the best of one's ability, this can make a positive impact on the lives of others and contribute toward better processes, systems, and institutional functioning.
So that was Nali Pando speaking at the United Nations last week Friday in honor of Nelson Mandela as we were celebrating International Nelson Mandela Day. So now let's move to another story. Last week Friday, it was on this day, Nelson Mandela Day. We also had a march by the official opposition party. This is the MK Party. The MK Party, they've been marching, I think, if you remember very well, before on the march on Friday. On Monday, they were marching in Johannesburg in support of Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, and they also have been issuing statements that if Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi is arrested, they will actually run this country ungovernable. We are likely to see what we saw during the July 2021 unrest. So they delivered a memorandum of grievances at the Union buildings on Friday, and among other demands was that the president must resign. If not, they will be taking the matter to court on the irregularities with appointing the new minister of police. Let's take a listen to what they have to say as they were delivering their memorandum of grievances at the Union buildings.
Man is exposed now. It needs to be dealt with now. We are marching today reflecting on the significance of this day. It is known as International Mandela Day, where people around the world reflect and take time to act in a way that serves humanity. We believe that at times such as this, the first commander of Mkhwanazi Party and Liberation Army would call for us to do to the ANC what we did to the apartheid government. The ANC of Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa has turned the ANC of Oliver Tambo into a scavenger, feeding on the black masses it was forced to liberate. It is behind this unfortunate realization that today we deliver this memorandum, as we refuse to submit, but vow to fight for total liberation of our people.
So yes, that was the leader of Mkhwanazi, one of the leaders of Mkhwanazi, delivering the memorandum of grievances to the Director General in the presidency last week on Friday. And we must also remember that they also have approached the Constitutional Court on urgent basis to challenge the appointment of Feroz Kachalia as the acting Minister of Police. We know that also the EFF has also released a statement challenging the appointment of Feroz Kachalia as the Deputy Minister of Police. Let's now look into another story. Last week, and I want us to listen to what the new minister, the acting Minister of Police, had to say, Feroz Kachalia, with regard to one of what I will say one of the most thorny issues when it comes to the police, protecting themselves, police, tackling crimes, sometimes very dangerous criminals. So, and the shoot to kill has always been something that has been criticized by the human rights groups. It's something that has been criticized by many political parties. Others have supported it. Let's take a listen to what Feroz Kachalia had to say with regard to the shoot to kill.
Police. But I do not believe that Skopskit and Donner brings down crime. In fact, what it does is criminalize the police. Shoot to kill. Giving the police a license to murder is not the answer.
So that's Feroz Kachalia, and of course, the EFF has actually come gun blazing on the minister's comments, or the incoming, acting minister's comments on the shoot to kill, because sometimes our police are faced with very dangerous, if I may put it that way, very, very dangerous criminals, and sometimes they have to act. On Friday, again, as we were celebrating Nelson Mandela Day, Senzo Mkhulu was in the KZN province, and he spoke about the fact that he's going to be challenging this, and he wants to be given a chance to testify at this inquiry. Let's just take a listen to what he had to say with regard to this.
Well, those were made in a particular day, and I'll talk about that. But all I can say is that, foremost, I welcome with both hands the decision of the president. How best this matter or these allegations can be processed and brought to finality. But one thing that I want to say is that among the values and the principles that Nelson Nhlanhla Mandela wanted to showcase in the world is that there must be justice, and justice means there must be both sides of the story must be heard. In other words, thorough preparations and thorough environment must be explored so that you hear everybody concerned.
So I think this is not actually the clip that I was looking for, but the clip that I was looking for, it is where Senzo Mkhulu is talking about the fact that whatever General Mkhwanazi has said is not true, and he will be working with his lawyers to actually give his own side of the story so that he can clear his name on this. And we also had some of the very controversial statements that he made in KZN on Friday, where he was speaking of the fact that the ANC has promoted black generals or made an opportunity for afforded black generals an opportunity to serve. And they must not forget that it is the ANC who gave them the opportunity. And I think that was just, I don't want to use the word that I said at the time, but I think that was really very bad for the minister to say, given the fact that he's facing all these challenges, given the fact that these are serious challenges, and now it looks like he is, in a way, in a very defensive mode, and also trying to discredit Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi in a way. But anyway, let's go to what Gwede Mantashe, the acting Minister of Police now, was responding to the budget vote that he presented on Friday, And in this, he's actually calling out the Democratic Alliance to say, you know what, if you don't want to be in the GNU, you can leave the GNU, and criticizing the MK for lack of political program. Let's take a listen to Kwedamantashi.
Where crime is concentrated. These are Gauteng, KZN, Western Cape, and the Eastern Cape. It is clear that identified high crime zones in all 4 provinces require intelligence-led, targeted deployment of specialized units to combat criminality over and above Operational Chanela. These named provinces have been prioritized in the allocation of baseline budgets. This includes additional 85 million rand to support the top 3 plus 5 high conduct crime stations. Community engagement will be supported through an allocation of 28 million.
Well, this is exactly not what I'm looking for, but let me go to the audio that I'm looking for, where he actually heavily criticizes the Democratic Alliance for being in the GNU and at some point wanting to act as the opposition.
But let me make a few comments on the issues that came out of here. The first one is that there's nothing as irritating as a party that has no program. Because once there is chaos and disorganization, they climb on that and make it their program. General Mkhwanazi raised issues that are given to the commission, and that commission must investigate them, give us outcomes. But there are people who are writing on that and create it as a counter-revolutionary program. That belongs to them. It is not, the president has appointed a commission. That commission must be allowed to do its work to the completion. Now, there must be no threats and there must be no disruption. Allow it to continue. Particularly MKP, a party that has 2 of its senior people arrested out on 50,000 rand bail, and no action was taken. All of a sudden, they wake up, they are in the streets. It cannot work that way. Raise your fingers when your senior members are arrested. Raise your finger. We don't see it. I'm leaving that. The second one is, I want to advise the DA. Please review your strategy on the GNU. We can't take responsibility for divisions in your party. Where you want to be in the GNU and be part of the government and also act as an opposition from within. We can't carry that. The GNU must never carry that responsibility. So come to the GNU or leave the GNU.
We are going to leave it there. I wish we can continue with some of the stories that has captured our attention in the last few days, including those 5 convicted criminals that were deported to Eswatini from the United States. I think that was just crazy. But let's leave it here for the highlights of the week. We are back with Zandile Phiri, the Secretary General of the UDM, right after this break. She will be helping us to reflect on the 1 year of the GNU and also giving us some thoughts on the recent developments with regards to the allegations levels by General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, and also the establishment of the Independent Commission of Inquiry to probe those allegations. We are back right after this short break. Stay tuned.
The Africa Center for Work-Based Learning is a professional development center for professionals who aim to improve their professional standing. This means that the learning programs we run are more than just academic programs. They are work-based programs that focus on leveraging your current experience as a professional to build your overall profile. A year down the line, the Africa Center for Work-Based Learning is developing into a preferred center for professional development in Pretoria, with 8 professional development faculties including accounting, teaching, entrepreneurship, as well as IT and many more. For more information, go to acwbl.org or dial +27 12 751 7608. The Africa Center for Work-Based Learning, where work is learning.
Welcome Welcome back to The Cycle this evening with me, your host, Mogale Mothale. We are privileged this evening, as I said before we took a break, that we'll be joined by Zandile Phiri, the Secretary General of the UDM. They are part of the GNU, and they will be helping us to just look at or reflect on the 1 year of the GNU. It's been 1 year since the GNU, and we just want to know, in its current form, is it a vehicle or the correct vehicle to really bring about change in this country? We will be hosting other political parties who will be coming to the show in the coming weeks just to reflect on the 1 year of the GNU. For those of you who have been with us for some time, as I said earlier, you will remember that in the early days of the year, we had Bantu Holomisa, who is the leader of the UDM, as the Deputy Minister of Defense, talking to us about the Back to School program in the Eastern Cape. So they are in the GNU. They are playing a very important role in the GNU. And we have Zandile Phiri on the line talking to us about this. Zandile Phiri, good evening and welcome to Vuka.
Evening, and how are you today? Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for making time this evening. Maybe let's just start here. Your overall analysis of the GNU, it's been 1 year. Do you think that, or does the UDM think that the GNU in its current form is the right vehicle to actually bring about change to the people of South Africa?
Well, UDM, for one of the first things that I need to highlight is that it has long been consisting for and principal advocating for coalition government, and more specifically for the formation of the GNU for several years. As the UDM campaigned on this platform and having clearly recognized the shifting political landscape and the inevitability of more inclusive government model. So as early as the lead-up of the 2024 national and provincial elections, we anticipated that no single party will emerge with an outright majority, a reality that since has become. Well, from our perspective, in fact, as the UDM, is that this outcome presents a vital opportunity to strengthen South Africa's democratic foundations, number one, through the meaningful checks and balances. Well, the dominance of a single party, we have experienced it, we have seen it across the national, provincial, and local spheres of government has for as far too long contributed to systematic corruption, weak accountabilities, and the erosion of public trust. A proper constituted GNU rooted in transparency and shared responsibility has to potentially to reverse this trend and restore integrity to public institutions. If we can go deeply in it, the GNU, if we look at the 2025 budget debacle, for example, well, the debacle surrounding the national budget process has laid bare the persistence of power mongering among certain partners within the GNU. What ought to have been a collaborative and well-considered process, instead, it descended into a display of political arrogance and miscalculations. If we can note, for instance, the Minister of Finance and others underestimated the political will and resolve of colleagues from the so-called smaller parties, wrongly assuming that these voices could be sidelined or ignored, which is the misjudgment that had serious consequences, because the finance minister was compelled to return to the drawing board on no fewer than 3 occasions, which is one of the challenges that we should look at in order to finalize the budget. Throughout this process, it became increasingly clearly that transparency was not just a matter of governance, but a political necessity. Because the insistence of smaller parties of accountability and inclusiveness forced a change in approach. And in going so, it reminded all partners in the GNU that shared government cannot be as symbolic or selective. It cannot be selective at all. And then what this episode makes abundantly clear is that the current framework for developing the national budget is no longer fit for purpose under the new political dispensation. It was designed for a different era, one of majority rule, which was it is in past now, and it is now glaringly out of step with the realities of a multi-party GNU. As such, there is an urgent need to redesign the process in a way that takes the present context into full account.
Yes.
That's how we can put it. So, in particular, before I just give you another chance. In particular, the structure and functioning of the Cabinet Budget Committee must be fundamentally reconsidered. It is no longer acceptable for this critical decision-making body to operate as if it exists within a single-party administration. Its composition must reflect the diversity and the balance of the GNU, ensuring that all partners, regardless of their size or past influence, having a meaning voice in shaping the country's fiscal priorities, anything less will not only be undemocratic, but would also undermine the stability and credibility of GNU itself.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that comprehensive analysis of the GNU as it stands. And you rightfully pointed out the power of the so-called small parties, that they cannot be sidelined. And you remind me of one of the comments that were made by the DA spokesperson on national TV, on SABC, the public broadcaster. And he made the comment that, this was during that time when the first budget was rejected in Parliament, and she said that, referring to small parties, that they are just the backing vocalist of the ANC, and I found that to be quite insulting, because, and in the GNU, it doesn't matter how many percent you bring into the GNU, but you are there as a collective. You are there as a collective forming government. So what is your take on some of these comments that seeks to belittle some of the so-called small parties in the GNU?
You know what? The success of the GNU depends on mutual respect. A general consultation, not this thing of just hiding consultations. You call my UDM, you call that party, you call that party under one roof. You call us you recognize all partners, because the recognition that all partners bring value to the table. The budget process is the test of that commitment, and it is the test that must not be failed again. So they need to give mutual respect to all the partners of the GNU. For instance, there is a framework that UDM has been looked at guiding the GNU, where we are saying that immediately, while itself its initial purpose, for instance, the GNU, it is now evident that the document does not adequately account for all eventualities, nor does it always provide clear direction in practical or unforeseen circumstances. As a result, the GNU has at times been forced to navigate complex issues on an emergency basis, finding common ground reactively rather than through structured consensus. But fortunately, there is a growing recognition among GNU partners that this situation is unsustainable. It is therefore imperative that the leadership of the GNU has to be committed to convening a boss to address these shortcomings. Yes.
Thank you so much. And maybe as we understand that we actually don't have much time to really go into other issues that we have seen in the last few months. That the GNU, you can talk about the NHI, the Bella Act, the Expropriation Act. But maybe just to narrow it down, what is the role of the UDM in making sure that the GNU lives to really to accomplish its mandate of the seventh administrations through some of this, if one can call them, transformative elements or transformative vehicles in the form of the Expropriation Act, the NHI, and all of this. What is the role of the UDM in making sure that that this seventh administration actually see the implementation of this? It's not something that we just talk about, but we see the implementation of these transformative vehicles that have been passed by the National Assembly.
Yes. Well, as the UDM, we are saying that it is imperative that all GNU partners, in fact, even the UDM voice can be heard, no matter what, as well, and be respected. And then there is one thing that I want our people to be clear with it. GNU is GNU, UDM will always be UDM. So there will always be the transparency part will always be there. The accountability will always be there. For instance, as we are speaking, our deputy minister has already accounted to us and forwarded his accountability since day one he has been in the offices. That's one thing that we've never seen any other ministers nor deputy ministers do very well. So that's what we are saying. What is needed is a single unified coalition or agreement that applies equally to all partners and with clearly defined terms, conditions, and mechanisms for consultations and dispute resolution.
And as we conclude, Zandile, maybe just to get your thoughts on the recent allegations that have been leveled against the now former Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, by General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. What is the position of the UDM on these allegations, and also maybe can also comment on the establishment of this inquiry by the president to probe these allegations?
Well, the UDM has publicly supported the Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, commending him for exposing serious allegations of criminal infiltration and political interference within the SAPS and related security institutions. We have called for all thorough independent investigation into these claims, and as the UDM has urged President Ramaphosa to act decisively and transparently, ensuring that the investigation is not merely symbolic or procedural, but leads to real accountability, including prosecutions and institutional reform. The party emphasizes, I want us to be clear, the party emphasized the importance of protecting whistleblowers, particularly those like Mkhwanazi, who risk their careers as well as the safety to speak out as their safety. We welcome the scope of the Commission of Inquiry, that is the investigation allegation, including the infiltration of law enforcement, intelligence, judicial, and correctional institutions by criminal syndicates, the facilitation of organized crime manipulation or suppression of investigations, and the enhancement, in fact, of criminal acts by leadership and victimization of whistleblowers, corruption, leaked investigations, and the dismantling of critical task teams probed in political claims. We understand that South Africans suffer from commission fatigue, but this is the only impartial mechanism to investigate this matter. Mkhunu has a right to defend himself and the right to presumption of innocence until proven guilty, and this is what the commission has to do. But his commission's brief is much wider than just judging Mkhunu's guilt or innocence. And that's the important bit for the UDM. We are of the view that crime is driving away investment in the country and our people are living in fear. GBV cases and femicide, they are just out of hand and our children are becoming drug addicts. So with all this, we do support General Mkhwanazi. However, we also stand that Mkhwanazi has a right to defend himself until proven guilty. And then with this commission of inquiry, we are hoping that it won't be just an inquiry which will come with the outcomes and then no accountability or arrest will be made this time. Everything will go as it should be. Remember, this will be the first inquiry in the GNU.
Oh, thank you so much, Zandile. We really appreciate your time. Unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here due to time, but thank you so much for making time to be with us right here on Vuka this evening.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, that was Zandile Phiri, the Secretary General of the UDM, talking to us and also reflecting on the GNU and also giving us their thoughts on the independent inquiry into the allegations that have been brought forward by General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. We are going to leave here for the cycle. The cycle will be back next week, Monday from 6 until 7 p.m. From me, Mogale Mothale, your host, good evening. And of course, we will meet again next week, Monday, and God bless you.
The home of inspiration every day.
Most people give up on themselves easily. You know the human spirit is powerful.
From news,
Countries across the globe have been hit by the COVID-19 virus.
Views,
There's a global trend to see an increase in GBV incidences, specifically domestic violence.
sports,
What's he saying? It's a really good ball. It's Shabalala.
and music to inspire you every day. This is Vuka Online, your inspiration radio station.